We're so close.
Let's go. Let's
Okay.
do it.
Woo!
Welcome back to Jedi Enclave. I am Daniel.
I'm Chris.
And this is our post-Thanksgiving holiday episode of the Jedi Enclave Presents the Now This is Podcasting Podcast, a podcast where we talk about the things that we enjoy. Mostly Star Wars, some other things. And tell me, Chris, how your Thanksgiving was. I already know how it was, but I just feel really bad for you, and I want the world to commiserate.
I had COVID, so I was sitting home alone.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. In fact, we were supposed to have a show last week, and the universe started conspiring, right? Because there was, I decided not to do it because I was going to have to edit it. Like I was going to have to edit the for YouTube and stuff.
You
and
know, the week that your
Right.
in-laws were coming over. All of your
right.
in-laws,
And-
by the way.
Like all this shit started happening too because like I had this bathroom faucet that I kept putting off changing because I broke it, somebody broke it, and so I went to go change it, and I went to go turn the water shut off under my sink, and it wouldn't budge, so I manhandled it. And by manhandle it, I mean I hit it with a hammer, thinking, oh, I'll just give it a little tap with a ball peen hammer and it'll twist. It did not twist. It broke the fitting, and so water started spraying everywhere. And so I run down here to my main water shutoff. Turn it. Now you have to turn this thing really hard to get it to shut off all the way, right? So I turned it really hard, and I usually use a pair of channel locks to give it a good, right?
Yeah.
And it broke right off. And I was like, what the fuck? So I called the plumber, told him what was wrong, and he was like, yeah, the water shutoff is going to cost $1,200 to fix. And I was like, fuck that, I'll use a pair of vice grips to do that. And we couldn't get a plumber out because I didn't know exactly what I had broken under the sink. And then a guy was supposed to show up and he never did. And so I just figured it out and I was able to fix it. But then like we're supposed to be preparing for Thanksgiving because we hosted for like 10 people and the whole thing was just a fucking nightmare. And I was like, thank God we did not have a podcast because I would not, no one would ever have seen it except for the live version. So yeah.
My week was not anywhere near that dramatic. Yeah. I just made chicken chili and had tacos.
Yeah. That would have been great, actually. The Thanksgiving went off of that. We had a bunch of people over. It was a lot of fun. I cut myself carving a turkey, but it was a good fucking turkey. And I hope everyone watching had a good Thanksgiving. Let us know in the comments if you had any.
If you're American, let us know how your Thanksgiving was, and if you're not American, let us know how your Thursday was.
Let us know if there are any interesting political discussions at the table, which when everyone started filing in to my house, we made a rule before we started eating. No religion, no politics, no NASCAR.
Okay.
Don't discuss or argue any of those things. And
those are all fair.
Everything was just fine. Not that I give a fuck about NASCAR, but you never know because those guys are crazy.
That's true.
My father's one of them, I know. Okay, so today on our show, Dave Filoni news.
Yes.
Dave Filoni got a big old fucking promotion, or was it a big promotion? We'll talk about that. KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic might not be dead.
Might be dead, might not be. Who knows?
Yeah. Invincible season 2. Since we missed last week, we have 2 episodes we have to talk about from that.
I don't remember episode 3, so this is gonna be real fun.
Yeah. God, now that you mention it, I don't think. Oh no, it's Mark Goes to College.
Yeah,
it's that one. Yeah.
And with the I remember it now.
And we have a Star Wars story time today.
Woo!
Which is a lot of fun. I always enjoy this. The time codes for all of those things are in the description of this video. If you're watching later on YouTube, you can go check that out. If
you're watching in the present, you're stuck without any time codes, and I'm very sorry.
Yeah,
I don't know how to help you with that.
Gonna have to grin and bear it. I'm so sorry. Thank you to Connor at the Star Wars Hub, our dear friend from across the pond,
who did not celebrate Thanksgiving.
Probably
but,
not.
You know,
I don't know. He's kind of
hopefully he had a good Thursday.
He might have celebrated something. I don't know.
I'm sure he's thankful for something.
Yeah. Probably fisting. So That's so. I'm gonna tell Connor I made that joke because he makes a lot of memes on the Star Wars Hub Facebook that are Kit Fisto centered that have to do with fisting.
Kit fisting.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
So it's like his thing. Make sure while you're here, and speaking of fisting, make sure you like, subscribe, share. We're on Discord. The link of our Discord is in the description of this video. You can check that out right after this at 7, like today, like here in an hour and what.
If you're actually watching in the present and not, in the future.
We'll be playing Battlefront 2 with our buddies from Gremlin Squad. And then tomorrow at 7, we're doing Gungans and Dragons, which is our weekly Star Wars RPG, tabletop RPG. And
which also didn't happen last week because again you had plumbing emergency and I had COVID.
Everything was falling apart, and I remember I messaged you about that because I was like, are you going to be offended if we don't do Gungans and Dragons? And you're like, no, I'm dying. I'm like, okay, that's right. Let's talk about our first bit of news.
All right, what do we got?
So okay, this whole thing is kind of weird, and it's not weird, it's just that like I'm surprised that everyone's freaking out in the way that they're freaking out. So Dave Filoni got a promotion at Lucasfilm. Okay, now of course, even before I give you the details, what do you think the Mike Zero crowd is saying about this?
Well, it's either going to be he's finally going to save Star Wars. He's the chosen one. He was promised to do so.
Yeah.
Or Kathleen Kennedy has corrupted him and has gotten her tentacles into his brain and is corrupting him to the feminazi lifestyle.
It is like half and half, both of those.
Really?
Yeah.
Because those are kind of mutually exclusive if you subscribe to the Mike Zero way of looking at
if we're going to talk about cognitive dissonance, let's talk about cognitive
All
dissonance.
right.
Well, and also one of the other things is this is like proof that they're firing Kathleen Kennedy or whatever. So anyways, Dave Filoni had a chat with Vanity Fair. And,
a lot of people did.
Yeah.
I believe this was like, I don't know.
A bunch of Star Wars people did. Yeah. Yeah. This is kind of the big one from this. So he revealed a new job title, which is Chief Creative Officer of Lucasfilm.
Okay.
Now that sounds really great, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what his title was previously?
What was it?
Executive Creative Director.
Well, he's a president now, right?
No.
No, he's a chief officer.
Chief Creative Officer,
yeah.
Executive Creative Director. I'm not sure this is exactly a promotion. I don't know. This to me feels like let's give him a new title. It'll get us some good press. And
do you think he at least got a raise out of it?
I hope so. I think he's well worth it. I mean, yeah. I really do hope so. And he was talking about his new job responsibilities. And he said, in the past, in a lot of projects, I would be brought in. I would see it after it had already been developed in good ways. And so now he's like on the ground floor in most projects and is working more closely with Kathleen Kennedy, which is probably the thing that the Mike Zero Star Wars theory idiots are freaking out about and everything. And he added, I'm not telling people what to do, but I do feel I'm trying to help them tell the best story that they could tell, that they want to tell. I need to be a help across the galaxy here, like a part of the Jedi Council. And this dude's such a fucking nerd. I love him. And he was kind of talking about how, like we talked about this before, how Dave Filoni was like doing Avatar, the Last Airbender, and like Lucas kind of poached him, and he came in had his job interview was he sat down with George Lucas to talk about Star Wars, and George asked him a couple of questions about like how he thought the Force worked and all this other stuff, and that's what got him the job because it like aligned with his idea and everything. And so he was kind of like George Lucas's like Padawan. Like he kind of taught him everything about Star Wars and everything. And I think that's why a lot of people like him a whole bunch, because he really does have a really good understanding about how the broader things in Star Wars work that some people take for granted. For example, the fact that like Luke in The Last Jedi is a character who could be a video game character that gets a God mode power up, or a character in literature who has, a real story arc and has, his own demons and everything. So hopefully, I was thinking about this, hopefully this also includes that he's also working closely or leading the Lucasfilm story group, because those guys are like, they don't really make any, the decisions they make is what you're writing does that conflict with established canon? Because those are the guys with like encyclopedic knowledge about everything, how everything has happened and everything. And so it would be kind of cool if he kind of got to be a part of that as well.
I imagine he works very closely with them, if nothing else.
Yeah. And hopefully, I have in my notes, this includes unifying film trilogies with pre-planned plots and outcomes.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because if they would had something like this before the sequel trilogy, there's something like we've said this before, but like everyone's got one thing in the sequel trilogy that they really hate. Some people hate all of it, but everyone has at least one thing they're like, that's really stupid. And the reason is because they just didn't pre-plan, they didn't like plan it out and everything. So if they had something like this before, where they were like, okay, we're going to get 3 different directors because it's perfectly fine to have 3 different films with different visual styles.
But we're going to give them the story outline and say, your story has to fit within these confines.
Yeah, these are the beats, these big things happen, and then, you can develop the characters.
And if you want to do something a little bit, around the margins of this, sure, let us know. We'll talk about it.
And make sure it works.
Yes.
Yeah. This does not mean Kathleen Kennedy is being fired. This has nothing to do with Kathleen Kennedy. They have insanely different jobs. Kathleen Kennedy isn't really a creative force in Star Wars.
Kathleen Kennedy is doing money. Yeah. She's doing money and hiring people. Yeah. Dave Filoni is doing the actual story fun part of Star Wars.
Right. Yeah. What a great fucking job, by the way.
Yeah.
He talked a little bit about Balin's skull as well in this interview, which I thought was interesting, because he was a fan favorite in the show. Of course, Ray Stevenson died like after they wrapped filming. And where the story ends up, they had the opportunity to kill that character and just to be like, oh, well, we don't have to really worry about that now, but I mean, that fucking thing ends pretty much with him looking out on a fucking cliff. Like, I still got a story to go through. And so he gave some remarks about this. He said, Dave Filoni, that is, not Ray Stevenson, obviously. Obviously, there's a story there. We're in a wait-and-see pattern at this point, but I'm glad the conversation is about Ray and how great he was. And then he said, I used to have many debates with him and say, Ray, you're the villain here. And he'd be like, I don't think so. I was like, I know you don't think so, but you are. I love that you're playing it like you're not, which is exactly what Balin's skull would think. Yeah. And that, like, that makes me really happy. That's how he approached it. I think it's one of the reasons his performance is so fucking good in that show. I've heard, like, people have talked about maybe Balin's skull showing up in Tales of the Jedi, the animated series, or just like straight up recasting him, which I think would be perfectly fine.
Yes, they need to recast him.
They cannot do deep fake.
No,
like, the dude is dead.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, it is like when we went to go see The Flash, and at the end, all the crazy cameos, and you had that Christopher Reeves thing as Christopher Reeves Superman. That wasn't footage from a different, like, Superman movie or anything. That was one that did not exist before this movie. They resurrected the man from the dead and made him as like a fucking puppet, like a dead puppet on strings, and was like, look at him fucking dance. They cannot do that with someone like Balin's skull. Like, it's so gross.
I'm also now thinking of the Nicolas Cage screen test Superman with a fucking chest
his chest hair. Yeah, that was...
that was such a shitty movie, and what pisses me off is that it's making about as much money as the Marvels.
Yeah. At the end of the year, like, for the last couple of years, we've done this where we take stock of everything we've seen this year, and we kind of rank everything. And so my partner John loved The Flash, but it's because he's an idiot. Right? It's like he didn't have any, like, he didn't really care about the Michael Keaton Batman thing, and he doesn't really care about Batman that much at all. And it's like, and he also has a massive crush on Ezra Miller, so he didn't have any expectations going into it. And there were explosions and funny lines, and he got to see Ezra Miller's ass. So, like, there you go.
Sure,
it's like,
for a while he got 2 Ezra Millers on screen.
Yeah. And I just remember being like, fuck you for making that movie. You should have just, if you can nix Batgirl and get the insurance money for it, when all accounts was that it was fantastic, why didn't you do it to this? Next.
Anyway.
Let us know what you think in the comments about The Flash and also Dave Filoni and also Bale & Skull.
Let's talk about the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yeah.
So it's legendarily terrible.
Wait, say that again?
The Star Wars Holiday Special.
Oh, okay.
Is legendarily terrible.
Yeah.
Like, famously so.
We were just talking about this on our Battlefront stream the other day because the last sequence of the holiday special, they do the Life Day ceremony where all the Wookiees are in their like neck to foot red robes for some reason.
Sure.
And Carrie Fisher, and you know I love her, and she would reminisce about this and laugh, so I don't feel bad about saying it. And she was also very open about her drug abuse and everything.
Coked out of her mind.
Was so high that she was holding her up. And she's just like staring into space like a fucking astronaut. And like seriously, and that's not even the weirdest thing about that fucking holiday special. Anyway, go on.
So there's a upcoming documentary about this because there's a documentary about everything.
Yeah.
It's coming out December 5th. It's called A Disturbance in the Force. And
yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah. So if you've ever seen this awful bit of television special, or if you're just curious about how such an abomination could come to be, spoilers, the answer is money.
Yeah.
Maybe you're interested in that.
I am really interested in it. I would love to know how this happens. Aside from just the 70s and early 80s being really fucking weird.
My only regret is that, well, I'm going to say this and I might sound silly later, but my only regret is that Carrie Fisher wasn't available to be interviewed for this. Because she would tell all the good stories and have no filter about any of it.
I guess it depends on how far back they got interviews for it.
Because if they did this long enough ago, they might have gotten Carrie Fisher on camera.
Yeah, or they might just have archival, that would be really interesting actually. Because I would love, because that she'd be so candid and honest about it and everything. And
like Mark Hamill would come close. Harrison Ford.
I think Mark Hamill would be amicable.
Yeah.
He'd be like, it was a thing we did. Because he's joked about it on Twitter before. He's like, we don't talk about that. Like, look at my fucking face. It's weird.
Mark Hamill, or Harrison Ford almost certainly was not interviewed for this.
I don't think
they probably, they sent him invitations. He said, he probably didn't even respond.
Yeah.
His agent just shredded them.
Yeah. He's probably like, they're like, you want to be in a documentary about the Star Wars Holiday Special? And
he's like, you said Star Wars, so the answer is no.
Yeah, but also there is no holiday special. So no.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go fly my plane.
Yeah, into the ground. So yeah, I think this will be actually a lot of fun. I look forward to seeing it. Nate says, sup guys, feature films, Jedi Enclave, Chris. I don't know. Game's coming out. Okay. Outlaw and Eclipse. Outlaw for sure. This year or next year.
Yes. Yes. Eclipse.
Believe it when I see it. Also, I didn't put this on our news rundown, and I kind of wish I totally forgot. So I'm just gonna put this in here real quick.
Okay.
Taika Waititi started talking about Star Wars again.
Oh God, here we go.
And apparently his thing is happening.
Oh.
And
does he have a script?
I'm pretty sure he joked around about it so much that they were like, dude, everyone's scared you're not actually doing it, so you need to get and so he's like, okay, so what news can I give fans that will put their minds at ease about Taika Waititi's Star Wars? And then he goes, oh, everyone's gonna hate it.
Okay.
Actually, I think what he said is half, like a lot of people are gonna hate it.
Well, that's just the way any Star Wars project
but
works
he seemed so gleeful in reporting that. Like, he knew what going in, and I think that it's probably the most healthy, like, if you're a filmmaker that like, landed the coveted Star Wars film prize, like J.J. Abrams or Ryan or, any of the other guys that were fired and then someone else came in, Ron Howard.
Colin Trevorrow.
Yeah. Poor guy. If they had gone into it being like, oh, we're just going to piss them off. This could be fun.
I think it's a good sign for any creative endeavor when the creator is intensely gleeful and excited about what they're doing.
Also, I don't think Taika Waititi takes anything seriously. He just, nothing matters to him.
Based on his body of work, I can believe that.
So that's the thing that was flying around this week. You remember that they announced a KOTOR remake.
Yes.
And they had like the 30-second teaser thing.
They showed Revan.
Yeah. Which, by the way, they had to take that down because like the music license expired or something.
Okay.
And that freaked everyone out as well. But anyway, so like, you know, they were going to do this. And a while ago, there was a podcast called, or there's a guy called Jeff Grubb who is on the Game Mess Mornings podcast, who was himself like a podcaster and like had an inside source or whatever.
So this is a pretty legit source.
Well, he didn't name this particular one, but it like this guy is pretty trustworthy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right. And said that the KOTOR remake was not actively being worked on.
Okay.
So everyone was like, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
Like that figures. That's actually totally Star Wars, so like that totally figures, right? And then Embracer, who is like the
parent company of the company doing the remake.
They were having financial problems, and they laid off like 900 people, and they're like, okay, so KOTOR isn't happening.
It's definitely dead.
So it turns out, recently, Jason Schreier,
another very legit source.
Very hard for a man with a slight lisp to say his name. He's a video game journalist for Bloomberg, which is like a legit, he's a legit thing. Was asked about it on some social media thing, and he said, and I quote, "Is it alive and will it ever come out are two very different questions. A third is," which by the way, no one asks you these questions, "if it does ever come out, what will it actually look like? That said, I've talked to two people at Saber who both say they're currently working on it. So I don't believe that the comment that it isn't being worked on in any way right now is true."
Okay.
Now, this is not exactly the reassuring thing people wanted to hear about it.
No.
Because pretty much what he was like is that maybe they're working on it, but it'll probably be shit. Right?
I think if I can put myself into his shoes for a moment.
Okay.
He's saying, okay, I have these inside sources that say they are working on it. So it's probably not, dead, but also these sources might not have been totally enthused about what they're doing. And the fact that it was announced, a year or two ago?
Yeah.
And we have not seen or heard anything else since
is
not a very encouraging sign.
Yeah. I agree. It's also I remember there being rumors about how they're not going to release it on an Xbox for the first 6 months.
Yeah, which is really fucking funny because it was an Xbox console exclusive.
Yeah, and also Star Wars doesn't do the the Spider-Man PlayStation exclusive. Star Wars doesn't do that because they want to make
all of them.
They want to make every money, and if you do a console exclusive, or if you do an exclusive for a platform, that's a bunch of money you're not getting from the other consoles. And so, and I don't even know, maybe that wouldn't have ended up being true. What else do we got?
So Daisy Ridley gave an interview with Collider.
Oh God.
Now this one was probably okay. So of course, Daisy Ridley is starring in a new Star Wars movie about, Rey rebuilding the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
So Daisy Ridley said about the plot of the new movie, quote, "I'm very excited. The story is really cool. I'm waiting to read a script because obviously I don't have any other updates. It's not what I expected, but I'm very excited," unquote. So this could go a lot of different ways.
I think the most obvious is it's boilerplate.
Sure, yes. I'm excited. The strikes are over and I can start promoting things again, so I'm going to hype this up because, that...
she isn't going to say anything bad about it, obviously. Yeah.
I think it's entirely possible that she is actually excited about this. I think of any of the actors involved in the sequel trilogy, Daisy Ridley probably has reason to have the warmest feelings about Disney and be the most willing to work with them again for a new movie.
Yeah, she's kind of the rock star of the and she also has kind of been the one that's had a bit of a career afterwards. She's also been in other stuff since the sequel trilogy and everything. Of course this is going to generate a bunch of bullshit from, people who can't handle, whatever their problem is with Rey or all that other bullshit.
There's too many women in my Star Wars.
Or whatever their thing is. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to keep an open mind about it because there are some elements. I've been pretty open about this. Like, we don't like to talk a ton about stuff that we don't like. Like, we like to talk about stuff that we do like. Yeah. It's more fun, you know. But neither of us liked The Rise of Skywalker. No. And if you're sitting there watching and you're like, oh, but that was my favorite sequel trilogy movie.
Good for you.
That's fucking great.
Great. Yeah. I'm so glad that you liked it.
Yeah. And I also find myself a little jealous that I didn't get I didn't have those kind of feelings for a Star Wars movie, because that's what I wanted. I went into that movie wanting to do that. And that being said, there's still parts of that movie when I rewatch it where I'm like,
that's pretty fucking cool.
This is cool. Like, I enjoy watching
like
this.
The fucking cavalry charge across the Star Destroyer. Yeah. Like, it's stupid as fuck, but it's really cool.
Yeah, and it's like, this is fine.
It's Star Wars. Right. Whatever.
The one line is, they're like the one command, like the Imperial commander dude is like, where did their army come from? Like, where did their squads come from or whatever? And he's like, they're just people. And they're like, what's that?
What?
Yeah, I don't understand what that is. Yeah. And just the idea of horse dog things on top of a Star Destroyer. Yeah. But Richard E. Grant is in that movie.
Yeah.
And he fucking chews every scene he's in. He might be my favorite part of that movie, actually, now that I think about it.
I don't care who wins. I just want Kylo Ren to lose.
Well, that's Donald Gleason.
Yeah.
Which also...
Another great part.
Also, one of my other favorite parts of that movie is him pulling Finn and Poe aside and being like, I'm the spy. and then later on, fucking Richard E. Grant just turning around and shooting the motherfucker right in the chest, and it's like the slide across the floor and everything. Like, there are some moments in that movie where I'm like,
okay, this is pretty good.
Pretty okay. On the whole, the story I found ludicrous and stupid. I thought it was a bit of an insult to Palpatine's
somehow
character.
Palpatine returned.
Right, and the fact that he would return for one film and immediately be beaten.
Yeah.
Like, the whole thing was just kind of, you know. And there was the whole thing with the Jedi Praxis leaks and all that other bullshit. And
speaking of the sequel trilogy, Daisy Ridley specifically stated that she knows the storyline for one film. So if there are sequels planned for this, she doesn't know about them.
I'm kind of glad you said that, because I started to forget why I was bringing that up.
Yeah,
there are parts of that story that have me interested to know how they're going to develop that later on. Like, obviously, Rey is a character who's still alive.
Yes.
Trying to rebuild the Jedi again, and whether or not she'll try to make the same mistakes that Luke made and all that is pretty interesting. But I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if they try to find a way to bring Ben Solo back. Because if we're gonna, like, Rey was good in those movies.
Adam Driver carried it.
Yes, like Rey, like Daisy Ridley is kind of her first big feature film project.
And she was fine.
Yeah, she was fine, and I enjoyed her. I think she's really charming. Mm-hmm. Adam Driver was a fucking monster that entire trilogy. Yes. So good, and it, like, I don't know how they'll do it. Or even if they...
I could see them just using him as a Force ghost, honestly. I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah. The thing is, he didn't do anything personally, at least that I know about, that is hideously as terrible as what Anakin did. Because we find out that he didn't kill all the Jedi students on at Luke's Jedi school. That was Snoke. Or, sorry, Palpatine.
I could see us getting a flashback that explains that on screen, because, like,
it's in the comic.
Yeah, but how many people who are going to see the movie will have read the comics?
By the way, that comic came out like the day before Rise of Skywalker came out, which I thought was kind of cool. So, like, there's a bunch of shit they can do with it, and by then when the movie comes out and when they film it, Mark Hamill is not a young man anymore.
Nope.
So, I'm excited. Give me a fucking Star Wars movie and I'll watch it. All right, so we get to do our favorite segment, Star Wars Story Time. Now, if you're wondering, well, what is a Star Wars Story Time? It's me telling you a story about something I read in some peripheral Star Wars thing, whether it be comics or a novel or whatever.
And I have no idea what's coming here. It could be like the time Yoda kicked ass with a battle axe 3 times longer than he is. It could be the time Yoda crashed the Justice Star into Coruscant and killed billions.
Yeah. This is a Yoda story, by the way.
It could be like the time Luke kicked the Knights of Ren's collective asses all by himself.
Yeah, all those are great, cool things, by the way. So this week we're doing a Yoda number 8, Master and Apprentice. Okay. Which they are using the shit out of that title.
Yeah.
In a bunch of stuff.
It's a good phrase.
Yeah. But first, before we get going on that, a thank you to our friend Star Wars Comics Story on YouTube. Go check him out. And while you're here, make sure you subscribe and comment whether or not you've read this particular comic, what you thought of it. It's a Yoda story. All Yoda stories are usually pretty great because he's kind of a little badass. But so previously, this is a continuation of this run, right? And Yoda has exiled himself on Dagobah and is like constantly pestered by the spirit of Qui-Gon Jinn.
He's like, hey, you want to do Force stuff?
Yeah, he's like,
do Force stuff.
Yeah, he's like, I need to teach you how to be, immortal. And he's just like, I'm just trying to make my
Fuck
suit.
you.
Yeah. And so instead of dealing with Qui-Gon, Yoda likes to like remember the good old days, including his adventure during the Clone Wars, where he dueled General Grievous in the last issue.
Okay, yeah.
The one and only time that happened.
Yes.
And in that, they discovered the Separatists are working on a super weapon, which was just a really big super battle droid.
Okay.
Right. They're like, oh, it's Project Titan. It's probably a real big fucking terrible thing. And they're like, oh, it's just a taller super battle droid.
Roger.
Yeah. Super battle droid. Yeah. So I guess we're going to go take care of that.
Yeah.
So,
go chop its legs off or something.
So all of these comics have started with Qui-Gon trying to bug Yoda, but this one starts in Yoda's memory of the event.
Okay.
And so he just dueled Grievous, found out where Project Titan was being manufactured, and he's hologram space-timing the Jedi Council with Anakin Skywalker, because Anakin's like on the adventure with him, right? Yeah. So they found the planet where the mega droids are being produced, and Anakin's like, okay, so we found where they're making the droids, but it's not heavily guarded because it's like a tiny little planet hidden in a nebula. Yeah. So here's my brilliant plan. We go in with the boys from the 326th and we blow everything up.
Okay, it's a very Anakin plan.
Doesn't that sound smart?
Yeah.
Doesn't it sound fucking smart? And Mace Windu is like, Yoda, how do you feel about this brilliant display of military strategy? And Yoda's like, I mean, it's Anakin. He's got one trick. And Anakin's like, I'm standing right here, asshole.
Anakin's like, but it's a good trick, you must admit.
Yeah. And Yoda's like, I mean, he's a big dumb hammer. Like, we can't be surprised when he just wants to slam his face against things. Like, that's what hammers do. And Anakin's like, look, I'm just saying, for the record, if I ever end up murdering all of you guys, this shit right here is why. Just want you guys to know this.
Just hypothetically,
So Yoda's like, I think we'll be okay as long as we don't run in like overconfident and then like get fucked. And Mace Windu is like, yeah, because that's never happened to Anakin before.
Anakin's like, dude, I'm standing right here.
Yeah. So Mace Windu's like, we're spread so thin, it doesn't fucking matter. Just go with God.
Yeah.
You go and do it, and hopefully you guys don't die. And so the transmission ends, and Anakin turns to Yoda. He's like, "What the fuck, man? Like, we had an adventure.
Yeah.
Like, I thought we were bros."
Yeah.
And Yoda's like, "Yeah, I'm not surprised you'd think that." And Anakin's like, "Look, the clones can handle whatever we throw at them." And Yoda's like, I'm not buying that this place doesn't have adequate protection. Like, it's kind of weird to me that, like, I get it's a small planet, it's inside a nebula, but, like, if this is a super important project for the Separatists, it just doesn't make sense to me that they wouldn't have it heavily guarded.
It does seem a little suspicious, doesn't it?
And Anakin's like, what the fuck does it matter? Like, you know what's going to happen. Like, it's what always happens. We're going to bust in. We're going to get in over our heads. We're going to pull out our lightsabers, and we're going to destroy everything in sight. Like, can we go now, please? And a clone Commander Caesar interrupts, and he's like, hey, we're at the nebula. So they find a small planet called Galatha. It's like dry and arid. It's got like some temperate spots with tall spires. It looks kind of like Geonosis in spots.
Okay.
And Anakin and Yoda decide to do some reconnaissance rock climbing. And so they get up to a cliff, and Yoda like pulls out his binoculars, and he's scanning the area. And Yoda's like, And Anakin just is like, and then,
so are we gonna blow something up now?
Yoda's like, and like Anakin's like trying to keep it together, and
tapping his toe, checking his watch.
Yoda's like, and Anakin's like, what? Fuck, what is it? What do you see? And Yoda's like, well, this is the valley where the factory is. And
Anakin's like, obviously, what else can you tell me?
He's like, okay. And he tosses the binoculars and he's like, do you see a fucking factory? And Anakin's like, what? And he starts looking around. He's like,
wait a minute.
I do not. Like, shit, you're probably right about there's something weird probably happening with the defenses here that we don't know about. And Yoda's like, or it's just underground. And he's like, I mean, yeah, or it's just underground.
Okay, that makes sense.
So they call the clones in, and they all mobilize and shit. It's a big fucking company of clones. Yeah. And Yoda calls Commander Caesar over, and he's like, okay, we're going to go into the valley. Let's go. And there is one little road down into the valley, and the entire company have to walk in single file down into this valley, right?
It seems like a trap.
Yeah, and Caesar is like, it's quiet. It's too quiet. Yeah, and they immediately start taking heavy fire.
Yeah.
And clone troopers are like dropping like flies, and Anakin's like, God damn it, can we catch a break just once? And Yoda's like, don't pretend like you're not rock hard right now. And Anakin turns on his lightsaber. He's like, how the fuck did you know?
He's like, now I am.
And Yoda's like, your hand is in your pants. And he's like, all right. So Anakin leaps into the middle of the firefight next to Caesar, having the time of his life.
Yeah.
Like it's Anakin, right? And they don't know where all the fire is. Like they don't see who's firing at them. Yeah. It's just a bunch of gunfire. And they're confused because the intel said that like it wasn't heavily defended. So it's like the opposite of that.
What the fuck is going on?
So in the heat of battle, Caesar and Anakin see a small green blur just like fly past them. And Anakin's like, Yoda, like, where the fuck are you going? And he like calls over his shoulder. And he's like, I'm bored of this. I'm going to go find the factory, stay with the clones. And so, and like Caesar takes a hit to the chest and he dies. And like his dying breath, he's like, give him hell. And Anakin's not a big fan of his buddy dying and everything. And so Yoda gets out of this kill box that they're in, and he starts looking around, and he finds a battle droid that's guarding a hatch, and he grabs him with the Force.
Like, this looks important.
Yeah, and he's like, all right, I'm old, I'm impatient, I am powerful on a level you're incapable of understanding. Tell me where the factory is, or so help me, Mother of God, I will fuck you up so hard they're gonna recycle you into a Gamorrean sex toy. And the battle droid's like, it's right there. Like, I'm so sorry for all the trouble. Have a beautiful day. And Yoda's like, thank you. Good job. So Yoda returns to the valley. Anakin is the last person standing.
Of course.
Everyone else, the entire clone company is dead. And Yoda looks around and like takes a moment, like takes a beat. And he's like, well, so our forces are depleted. And Anakin is like, what gave you that impression? And Yoda's like, well, the good news is that I know how to get into the factory. The bad news is that there are going to be more droids in the factory, and there are only 2 of us. And Anakin's like, well, what's that thing you always say about size? And Yoda's like, it's not the boat, it's the motion. And he's like, what the fuck? We're doing this bit again? We're not doing this bit again. So they find the access point to the factory. By the way, it's a callback to our last Star Wars story time, which you can check out on our YouTube channel. They find the access points to the factory, which is just a hatch with like this long ladder down. And Yoda's like, okay, let's proceed with caution. And Anakin's like, that's the only way I know how to proceed. Like, you know what they call me? Anakin proceeds with caution Skywalker. And Yoda's like,
literally nobody calls you that.
That's a fucking lie. And we both know it. And so they land at the bottom of the ladder, and there's a squad of battle droids just like waiting for them. And Yoda's like, well, I found the droids. And the droids start firing at them, and Yoda he pulls out his lightsaber, and he's like winding up for a big epic jump, and he's like gonna go fight him, and Anakin just tears the entire squad apart with the Force, picks them all up, just fucking tears them apart.
Anakin's like, I thought I couldn't get any harder, and yet here I am.
Right, and so like he tears them apart, they fall to the ground. Yoda's like, and Anakin's like, what fucking droids? I don't see any droids. And Yoda's like, you've never done that to living things, right?
And he's like, no, of course not.
He's like, not that exact thing, no. And Yoda's like, okay, let's go find the assembly line. And Anakin's is like, that's a great idea, but like, what are we gonna do once we get there? I don't think we can just like lightsaber the whole factory. And Yoda's like, I have 8 thermal detonators in my backpack. And Anakin's like, wait, you were just in a firefight with a pack full of thermal detonators? And Yoda's like, yeah, I'm starting to think that like on some deep, dark level that we don't want to talk about, we're actually way more alike than people think. And Anakin's like, is that even enough to like finish the mission? Like this place is kind of huge. And Yoda's like, you see, it's not the boat, but and he's like, okay, I fucking get it.
Okay, fine,
Yeah.
fine.
So they find a central column that appears to be holding like a lot of the structural weight for the factory. And Anakin's like, okay. So I'm still not sure what's going on with the defenses. Like, we took a ton of fire on the surface. We came down here. There's only one squad. Like, it just feels kind of weird, you know?
Yeah.
And Yoda shrugs, and he's like, yeah, let's just blow this up. Like, help me set the charges. And Anakin's like, that's fine. So they set the charges. They escape to the surface. And Anakin's like, so when is this thing going to blow up? And on cue, there's a huge explosion. Kaboom! And the ground starts collapsing into the factory. And Yoda's like, right now. It's going to go off right now. And Anakin's like, you know what's really lucky is that there weren't any prototypes that made it off the line. And on cue, something torpedoes out of the wreckage, makes an arc, lands right in front of them, and it's this tall fucking super battle droid. And the comic ends with Yoda being like, "You
Anakin,
fucking had to say something."
Fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Which I feel like any comic could end with Yoda just facepalm saying, "Anakin, you fucking idiot."
Yeah. And I was gonna do 2 of these today, but then we got to talk about Invincible. Yeah. So we're actually making really good time on this. Yeah. Where this show is concerned, I suck at time management. I just don't. Like, I don't know why I think that you and I are never going to have an hour's worth to talk about when we easily could do a 3-hour show probably. But anyway, we'll do the next one.
Maybe 2 hours.
Yeah.
3 hours is a bit much.
I think the next one's called Well, Hello There.
Oh.
Which would be kind of cool. Also, there have been a bunch of Vader comics that I want to get into as well, because that shit's been getting pretty crazy as well. So you can come back next week, see the next installment as told by me, which is, as you probably put together,
mostly accurate to plot events, but the dialogue is kind of improvised.
So
let's talk about Invincible.
Yeah, we'll finish off with Invincible. I'm going to make sure we're not missing any.
That looks like we're good.
Well, Streamlabs OBS likes to not show me chats from Twitch and YouTube sometimes, so it's really hard to tell. Also, I didn't frame our live stream camera exactly correctly because this is a professionally produced basement podcast. Mm-hmm. But I know that our beautiful camera for the actual podcast is framed well. We missed last week's
last
episode.
time.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have 2 episodes ago.
Mark and friends went to college.
Yeah. He and his gay friend, who I love, who I remember in the first season, wanted Omni-Man to just plow him to death. And he's like that kind of gay, right? Because I don't know what I'm speaking as a gay man. I do not understand this. Why mustaches are such a thing right now with gay men, and also people that gay men want to have rough, superpowered sex with. Also, the fact that his friend last season was in high school and wanted to get plowed by, I don't know, like a 50-year-old man.
High schoolers are horny.
That's true. And what's funny is him telling Mark about wanting to get fucked by Omni-Man, not knowing that it was his dad or that he was superpowered or anything. So anyway, and it's also Mark's girlfriend.
Yes,
who are all going to some like really
upstate university,
generic thing. Yeah.
Anyway, so they all move into their dorms, and Mark and Amber start having sex, and they cut away with this narrator who's like, "Let's just go away from that."
There's this whole thing, which, by the way, their first time, which if you're gonna do it, the first day, like when you move into college, I guess is a good time as any. Also, there was a really funny gag where Mark's friend was telling him, like, if you come back and there's a tie on the doorknob,
sock on the doorknob,
sock, like, I'm in here doing the dirty with someone, hopefully Omni-Man, well, probably not actually, he's a war criminal now, but go somewhere else.
Go somewhere else.
But and so Mark came back and saw the sock, and it just turns out,
my fucking God.
It just like turns out that he forgot to take it off when he was demonstrating it, so he wasn't actually in there. Yeah.
So we cut away across the galaxy to Alan the alien.
Yes.
The dude who showed up on the moon and
the post-credit scene of the season finale, I think, right?
No, I think he had the whole episode to himself.
Did he?
I think so.
I thought he just showed up on the moon.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So we get the backstory of his species, which is they got fucked up by the Viltrumites, and they bred Alan as a super soldier, except he can't fight the Viltrumites. So
their best effort at a super soldier, which he's probably very effective in most areas, but against a Viltrumite he's nothing because they're that crazy.
So he comes back. He tells them, hey, there's this planet called Earth with this kid called Invincible who's half Viltrumite, and this causes a big uproar among the galactic community because they're like, all Viltrumites are fucking evil and they just want to genocide everything. And
which they do.
They kind of do, yeah. So Alan, gets out and meets up with his girlfriend. And they boink, and the narrator's like, well, let's just cut away from that. And, oh, God, Mark and Amber are still doing it. Yeah. Let's just go somewhere else.
The whole narrator gag is really funny because they've got the cat that has, like the really weird tongue and everything, and, like, they focus on the cat for a few minutes.
And the cat starts licking his balls.
Yeah. Which, by the way, Alan is voiced by Seth Rogen, who I think is hilarious.
Didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you, like, his voice is so distinctive that, like, I don't know. I couldn't unhear it once I heard it.
So eventually, so there's a spy within the upper rungs of the galactic concordate or wherever the fuck. Yeah. No one knows who it is, but we're trying to find the spy.
Yeah.
So Alan and his girlfriend go to this space diner to have some food and
post-coital meals. Yeah.
As you do.
Yeah.
And so his girlfriend is like, hey, so what did the head honcho want to talk to you about after that meeting? And Alan said, oh, don't tell anyone, but there's a spy.
Yeah.
And then just then the Viltrumites attack, and they beat the shit out of Alan and kind of, rip him apart, as they do.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the hospital, his girlfriend is, crying over him, and the head honcho comes in and says, don't worry, it'll be okay. Why don't you go cry somewhere else? And then he unplugs Alan's life support.
Yeah.
Thereby confirming that he's the spy.
Which, by the way, Alan gets his ass whooped so hard.
It's not even close. Yeah. Like, he couldn't take one Viltrumite, and there were 3 of them.
Yeah, and they just fucked him up so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really surprised that he was still alive. So he turns off all the shit, and does he actually die?
That's the implication. That's what I took away from it.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's not, if somehow there's a way he's not dead or something.
Maybe,
because he was kind of a cool character. And yeah.
So there's like a brief credit sequence, then it cuts back to Earth.
I like we're back to the classic Invincible title splash.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they did something a little different in the next episode.
Yes. So now I believe it's after Mark and Amber do the thing, and Mark comes back to his room. And his gay friend is, of course, like, oh, my God, how was it?
Yeah. Tell me every single thing.
Mark gets a knock on the door, and he gets up, and it's one of his fucking... a full-size version of one of his childhood superhero toys.
Yeah. Who is in, like, a comic or something. Yeah.
So
it's a dog with a cape.
Yeah.
Because why the fuck not?
A dog that looks a lot like Doctor Strange.
Yeah. Yeah, actually.
Maybe not like MCU Doctor Strange, but like comic book Doctor Strange.
It's like how Invincible is like, oh, this guy's kind of Batman, or this guy is kind of... Yeah.
Anyway, Mark immediately knows that something is fucked up, so he starts, beating up the dog, and they go flying around. Eventually, it turns out the dog is just this space alien who's like, hey, you're invincible, right? I need you to come with me. My planet needs help. Like, if you don't help us, billions of people are gonna die.
Yeah, he's like, I appeared to you as something that might comfort you, hoping you wouldn't immediately kill me. Mm-hmm. So thanks.
Mark's like, God damn it, I guess I have to go. Like, you said the save billions of people line, now I have to go.
Which means he's gonna miss like the first 2 weeks of class,
something like that. Yeah. And there's a really touching phone call where he like is calling Amber as they're flying away and explaining what's going on. She's like, yeah, don't worry about it. This is what comes with dating a superhero.
Yeah. Also, she's like, I'll cover for you. And it's like, bitch, that's not how college works.
No.
That depends on what teacher you have.
So they get back to the space bugs planet. And, at first Mark's just walking around and be like, okay, this is kind of cool. And they're like, yes, the Monarch wants to see you. And the Monarch turns out to be his dad.
Yeah. Which was a big like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And he gives him the Darth Vader join me thing. Son. Yeah, and then he's like, it's been a long time,
it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Which I believe is the title of episode 4.
Yeah, and I like he's got like a new get up kind of. He's got like
it's familiar, but he has like Greco-Roman armor over it or something.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. So yeah, the next episode is I think almost all between them two.
Almost
right?
all. There's a small Adam Eve story in there.
Oh yeah, right. Because Adam Eve is like her parents are terrible,
and there's a little bit of Mark's mom.
Right. Yeah. So basically, on this planet, Omni-Man fucked an ant. Not like his aunt, like
one of the space bugs.
Insects.
Yeah.
And they've got a fucking kid.
A purple kid. Yeah.
And leave it to Invincible, the show, to show Nolan fucking tongue and all French kissing his insect wife right in front of his son, which I would have been like, oh god.
I love the title splash gag here because he's like, what the Invincible?
Yeah, right.
Comes back after that. Fuck.
Yeah, it's really good. And the kid is like, he looks human, but he's got like purple skin.
Yeah.
Or shit.
Apparently, Viltrumites can just fuck anything in the universe.
They have very, very potent.
It's one of their superpowers.
Yeah. So I like how their whole thing that like this species doesn't live very long.
So they're just very quick to fall in love and have kids.
Yeah. And so he's like, Nolan pretty much is like, so the Viltrumites at this point know that I abandoned my post.
They're going to follow me here. They're going to kill me and everyone on this planet.
Yeah. And these people are truly defenseless.
Yes.
They're fucking idiots.
They're completely fucked.
Yeah. And so I need to start training you right now to
fight like a Viltrumite and not get killed.
This whole time, by the way, Mark is having to grapple with seeing his dad after what happened, and the fact that not only did Omni-Man commit war crimes on Earth, but beat the shit out of his son, like within an inch of his life.
And said quite calmly that he considers Mark's mother to be like a pet.
Yeah, and just like the most cold-blooded shit in the world.
Yeah,
and then just fucks
complete
up.
psychopath shit.
And then now all of a sudden, like he seems like he understands what he did was shitty, but he also seems really impatient that Mark isn't just like forgiving him.
Yeah,
and this whole thing has to be a ruse, right?
I don't think it's that. I think it's that he's trying to be better, but he just doesn't know how. It's not part of his makeup.
There were like when he was talking about training him and like there's a fight later on with 3 Viltrumites. And he was talking to him about how he needs to fight like a Viltrumite and how he needs to you have to want to kill the person. I feel like he's trying to like prime that part of Mark that will turn him into the version of Mark that we saw in that alternate
fake out.
Yeah. And I think he's trying to get in his head and find a different way. Like instead of using the stick, this time we're going to use the carrot.
Yeah.
And try to get him to have like his Viltrumite instinct take over and turn him into, there's nothing you can't trust him, obviously, because of what he did and everything. Even if he is fully reformed, there's no way you can ever trust that he is because of what he did. So that whole thing is weird.
Well, let's just talk about the B plots for a second.
Yeah.
So Adam Eve shows up to the college where Amber and the gay friend are, and she's like, "Hey, can we go get coffee?" And Amber's like, "No, actually, we gotta go to class, but like, we'll get brunch tomorrow. But like, do you need to crash on my couch?" And Amber's like, "Nah, it's cool. I got a place in the city." So in the city is apparently the former team headquarters before they all became, the Guardians of the Globe or whatever. So she's just kind of hanging out there, and fucking what's his name, the gun arm guy shows up.
That's literally all you had to know about him. He has a gun for an arm.
He's a gun for an arm. He shows up and then steals some like a glowing orb, a literal MacGuffin.
Yeah, it's like an arc reactor or something.
And Adam Eve's like, "Oh, but baby, I was just looking for something to beat the shit out of."
Yeah.
So how about you just put the glowing thing back, and maybe I won't kick your whole ass. And gun arm guy's like, "I think I'd rather shoot you."
Yeah.
And Eve's like,
"Oh,
thank you."
Wow, who would have thought the man with a gun for an arm wants to shoot me?
Yeah. So they have this fight on some big bridge.
Yeah.
And at first Eve is just casually kicking his ass, but then, he starts endangering civilians, and Eve is like, "Shit, I have to actually save him and be a hero now."
Yeah.
So she does kick gun arm guy's ass, but also like pulls a car out of the ocean, and like I don't think the paramedics are able to revive the people.
Yeah,
inside.
I got the sense that they are like the people she saved, which kind of goes in line with her character right now, like with their parents telling her that she's not a superhero, she's dangerous, like she hurts people.
And there's the wrap up of this plot line is that she's like taking a bus somewhere, and like it's past the brunch appointment, and Amber's texting her, and she just kind of ignores it.
Yeah, so she's just gonna go and fuck off somewhere. And then Mark's mom is trying to figure out how to live with everything. And then we got the whole Donald thing too.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, the Donald, he remembers the last time he saw Mark's mom, and she was really, because we saw him die in the first season. And so he's like, why the fuck is everyone being so weird around me all of a sudden?
Yeah, so he goes down into the secure vault and gets some footage of the Omni-Man surveillance that he was doing when he died. And like at first he can't access it, so he has to use fucking what's his name?
The boss.
The boss's login. And then he sees it and he's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Did I die?
Yeah. No, he definitely died in the footage. Yeah. And there's he goes to that where that house was destroyed and like finds his glasses and shit. And is he a clone?
Well, see, he goes to the bathroom and like rolls up his sleeve, pulls out his knife, and like stabs himself. He's like, oh, thank God I'm bleeding. But then he looks at the knife and the tip is bent.
Yeah.
Like,
so he's
in a way that a human body can't. Probably
or like an android or something. Yeah, you're right. I forgot
really
about that. Yeah,
disguise. So let's go back to the space bug planet.
Yeah.
So the Viltrumites arrive and start destroying everything.
Yeah.
Omni-Man's like, look, Mark, you're probably gonna die if you stay here. So take my wife and your brother and just fuck off somewhere.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, man, this is not genuine because he's using this baby to manipulate Mark too.
Definitely. Yeah.
It's just the whole thing feels gross and weird, and I just don't trust him.
So Mark and family fuck off to this cave, but Viltrumite finds him and is in the process of kicking Mark's ass when Omni-Man shows up. He's like, "Hey, knock it off!"
Hand sword.
Yes, hand sword, cut you across the guts.
He loves to do that. Fucking, I'm gonna chop your arm off with my hands, not a weapon, just my hands.
So they're like, "All right, Mark, we gotta go save the rest of the people. Let's go back to the city." They get back. Everyone is dead.
Yeah.
All the bug people are dead. Every single one of them.
It's like a can of Raid.
Yeah.
Just came right
Nolan's like, well, shit. Mark's like, holy fuck. And there's 2 more Viltrumites.
Yeah.
And
there's old bitch, and then there's ginger bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Nolan starts fighting ginger bitch, and old bitch starts beating the shit out of Mark, and Omni-Man's like, look, Mark, you gotta fucking fight like a Viltrumite.
Give in to your anger.
You gotta fucking kill them, or they're gonna kill you. And
it is your destiny.
Yeah. And at that point, like, Mark actually starts doing okay.
Yeah.
Like, he starts fighting back. What stops him is that, like, he hesitates right when he's about to deliver a punch that probably would have killed her.
Like the killing blow, yeah.
And then she fucking stabs him with her hair knife.
Yeah.
It's a knife on the end for ponytail.
Yeah. I love how Invincible is like, that's the show where you can say, oh, he got stabbed with a hair knife.
Yeah.
And you're like,
okay, yeah, makes sense.
That would happen. That would happen in Invincible.
Yeah. So Nolan beats the shit out of the 2 Viltrumites. He's like, okay, Mark, you're okay? You're okay? I'm okay? You're okay? I'm definitely going to get kicked in the spine. Oh, God, I got kicked in the spine.
Kicked in the spine. God damn it.
And it was the guy who had his guts spilled out. I was like, next time you kill somebody, jackass, make sure they're dead.
Yeah.
Maybe, remove the head or something.
Yeah.
And then he calls in the Viltrumite fleet. And even more Viltrumites arrive.
Yep.
And they're like, okay. So we're going to take Omni-Man. We're going to go fucking execute him for being a fucking traitor. Mark.
You did pretty okay.
Yeah, you did all right. You got potential here.
Yeah.
However, I really want to see you develop that potential. And so you're going to take over your dad's mission.
Yeah.
You're going to go back to Earth and get them ready to join the Viltrumite Empire.
And if you don't, we're going to kill you.
We're going to kill everybody.
Yeah. So
we're going to kill everybody you care about. We're going to kill everybody you don't care about. Mm-hmm. We're going to kill, like, at least half the Earthlings.
Yeah.
So, maybe you should, just kill a couple to encourage the others.
Right. And then it ends with him being like, the fuck?
Also, I believe this is the last episode we're going to see for a while.
Oh, is it like a mid-season finale thing?
Yeah, like the rest of the season is coming out next year, I believe.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, they're doing
Which is a hell of a cliffhanger to leave you on.
Yeah. Yeah, they're doing that with a lot of streaming services too, because
this is animated, so I don't know if the strikes really affected it very much. But
I think that they're doing the same thing for The Crown on Netflix, where they released the first half of the season, and then they're gonna do the next half like next month or like in a couple of months.
Okay,
it's so that they can get an extra month of subscriptions out of people. Yeah. So anyway, we got to go. Go play some Battlefront. You can join us then. we would love to have you. Otherwise, we'll see you next week for the next episode of Jedi Enclave Presents the Now This is Podcasting